Good evening. Come on, guys, settle down. It is, what's the date today? June 5th, Wednesday, and this is the regular meeting of council. So I'd like to call to order this meeting, and are there any declarations of conflict tonight in the agenda? All right. So I'd look for a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. So we have two proclamations. The first one is Sunshine Coast Pride Month, June 2019. So whereas the District of Sechelt and the Sunshine Coast as a whole has a large and diverse, multi-generational, multi-ethnic, LGBTQ2 community comprised of lesbian, gay, bisexual, asexual, transgender, queer, questioning, agender, genderqueer, non-binary, two-spirit people, and more, who honor a culture that is distinct and vibrant with its own history and traditions. And whereas Sunshine Coast Pride has evolved from an annual Pride dance to a month of Pride events, celebrating LGBTQ people, arts, culture, and recreation, all of which provide vital opportunities for the whole LGBTQ community to identify and connect with each other. And whereas the abundance of youth programming during Sunshine Coast Pride Month provides vital opportunities for LGBTQ youth to identify and connect with each other and with the larger local LGBTQ community on the coast, fosters a sense of belonging to their community, helping to mitigate and address social, emotional, and cognitive isolation, factors which contribute to the high risk for suicide, substance abuse, and addiction within the LGBTQ youth population. And whereas Sunshine Coast Pride Month brings visibility to both the LGBTQ people who call the Sunshine Coast home and the multitude of exceptional allies in the community, all of whom strive to create a safe and inclusive community free from prejudice and discrimination, and helps create a healthy, supportive, welcoming, and safe place that we can all call home. Now, therefore, I, Darnell de Seegers, on behalf of the District of Sechelt Council, do hereby proclaim that June 2019 shall be known as Sunshine Coast Pride Month in the District of Sechelt. Congratulations. And thank you all for being here. We look forward to taking part in other events this month. The Pride Parade is on what date? You have there is a list. I think there are 19 different events happening this month, including the art show over at the Arts Center. Thank you, Lori.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
There are 17 events this month.
I thought it was 19. 17?
18, 17.
Very impressive, very impressive. Thank you. One of them is the crosswalk as well.
The crosswalk is being dedicated on the 15th
Yes?
of June, Saturday, where we will be there with cookies, which is the most important part of cookies. And Sunday in the Park with Pride, and the little Pride Parade is June 23rd, Sunday. Parade starts at noon at Davis Bay and heads to Mission Point Park, and it's an awesome, awesome event.
Okay, so June 23rd is Sunday in the Park with Pride, starts at noon at Davis Bay at the pier, walks to Mission Point Park, and everyone's welcome.
Everyone's welcome.
Thank you. So our next proclamation is Child and Youth in Care Week, June 4th through 10th, 2019. Whereas we are acknowledging our province's amazing, diverse, resilient children and youth living in foster care, whereas youth in and from care advocated for this week, now in its 9th year, so their brothers and sisters in care could grow up feeling celebrated for their diverse talents and accomplishments, surrounded by a supportive community who stands with them. And whereas they also wanted to raise awareness about the barriers they face and fight the stigma that comes with being a foster kid, in celebrating this week, we hope British Columbians have key information and tools to celebrate and support our incredible young people every other week of the year too. Now, therefore, I, Darnell de Seegers, on behalf of the District of Sechelt Council, do hereby proclaim that the week of June 4th through 10th, 2019, shall be known as Child and Youth in Care Week in the District of Sechelt. Thank you. All right, we'll move on. Thank you very much for being here. And we invite you to stay for the rest of the evening. Thank you. So we'll move on to item 5.1. This is. Thank you. So we're looking to adopt the minutes of the 7 p.m. regular council meeting of May 15th. This is 5.1, starting on page 6. Moved. Seconded. Any errors or omissions in here? Councillor Toth.
I just wanted to point out that my conflict was pertaining to marketing services that I provide to Trail Bay Properties, not materials. Thank you.
So that is where in the agenda?
1 and 10.4.
1 and 10.4. Okay, so we can make those changes. Councillor McLean?
Page 8. The section is in 2006, SCRD, and the second bullet point, SCRD has done substantial upgrading to the water line since, should be has not done.
Okay. Any other errors or omissions? So we'll back it up a touch and look for a motion to adopt the amendment or the agenda as amended. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you very much. Any business arising from the minutes? So we'll move on to item 7.1, minutes of the Committee of the Whole, and we're looking for adoption. Moved and seconded. Any errors or omissions on this one? All those in favor? Thank you. And minutes of the Committee of the Whole of May 22nd. Look for a motion to adopt. Moved and seconded. Any errors or omissions in this one? All those in favor? Thank you. So we're moving to bylaws. So this is item 8.1A on page 28. This is a zoning bylaw amendment 25-289, 2018 for 6317 Bly Road in West Sechelt. So I'd like a motion first to receive the report. Moved and seconded, all in favor of receipt? Thank you. And we'll turn it over to Director of Development Services.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The application in front of you is a rezoning application on 6317 Bly. It's here for second and third reading. It's not working. Anyway, I'll keep talking. The proposal is to rezone a parcel from R3 to R1. The effect of this is it would allow the applicant to move from a minimum lot size of 900 to 500 under the R1. The net gain on this is 4 lots under the current legislation, under current zoning. He could do 4 lots. His request is to do 8, so net gain of 4. It received first reading on December 9th, and a public hearing was held on April 17th. Most of the comments that came out of the public hearing at that time were around just concerns really with the property maintenance of the property, not so much about the application itself. People were concerned about what was going on there. We believe that the application will actually improve on that issue. Some of the concerns were around the small lots. 500 is actually only 100 below what is actually to the north of it. So it's fairly in keeping. It's not a small lot, it's actually quite conventional suburban lot size. The requirements on the rezoning is to do some partial upgrades of the transportation around Bly Road. Staff have reviewed this with engineering, and we are recommending that it be given second and third reading. And the recommendation is that zoning bylaw amendment 25-289-2018 be given second and third readings, and that the zoning bylaw be referred to the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure for their approval prior to it coming back to council.
Thank you.
That concludes. Thank you.
Any questions from council to the director? So we have two recommendations on page 28 as already presented. Councillor Toth?
I'll move recommendations 2 and 3.
Okay, is there a seconder? Seconded? Any discussion? Councillor McLean?
I just want to say that this is looking pretty good. I think this is the kind of thing that I'm looking for in terms of development. It's a smaller lot size. It's close to bus. It's easily serviced by sewer. And it fits within the neighborhood and addresses a community concern with current use. So this is definitely something that I'd be in favor of.
Any other questions, comments? So all those in favor? Thank you. So we'll move to page 36 to the actual bylaw. This is item 8.1B on page 36. District of Sea Shelf Bylaw number 25-289-2018, Everbright Ventures. A bylaw to amend District of Sea Shelf zoning bylaw number 25-1987 by rezoning a property on 6317 Bly Road from R3 to R1. And we'll look for a motion for second reading. Moved and seconded, all in favor? And third reading? Moved and seconded, all in favor? And then it will be referred to Ministry of Transportation. Thank you. So next we'll move to item 8.2A. This is Parks, Lands, and Roads Temporary Rental Amendment Bylaw number 480-3, 2019. A motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor of receipt? Thank you. Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this report is to recommend council give first, second, and third reading to an amendment to the Parks, Lands, and Roads Temporary Rental Amendment Bylaw. The amendment is simply to allow for overnight parking for the mobile vendors. Currently, they are allowed to stay there till 10:30 at night and cannot return till 6:30 in the morning. This bylaw simply allows them allows them to leave their apparatus overnight, not be forced to move it each night on their way out. This was brought forward as a recommendation from a delegation to council for the lane with EB ice cream down at Trail Bay. It then came back to council, and it was suggested again and moved by council on the date here, April 3rd, that the bylaw be amended to allow vendors to keep their vehicle or apparatus on district property overnight, and also to require the bylaw be brought forward in 1 year for reconsideration.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Toth.
Not actually a question so much as a comment. This isn't the first time that the mobile vendor bylaw has been experimented with. It was previously tried to rotate vendors at the different locations. I don't know, was that last year or the year before? That was last year.
That was last year, yes.
Yeah, so certainly worth trying new things.
Thank you. Any other comments? We have had a couple of residents, as you know, indicate that they didn't want us to allow the mobile vendors to stay overnight. But if we look at the times that the previous one had in place, as you indicated, they could come at 6:30 in the morning and set up, and they could stay there till 10:30 at night. So we didn't necessarily have vendors who did that, but the bylaw actually allowed for that. So this actually isn't much of a change for them. We have, I believe, in here indicated that they need to be mobile so that they could be moved should we need to do any maintenance or any kind of work at the site.
That's correct, Your Worship.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments? So we have a recommendation. Councillor McLean.
I'll do the recommendation in a second, but I'm in favor of this change. I think we discussed it previously at council. What this does is it makes it a whole lot more feasible to have a mobile vendor. I think we've heard from the mobile vendors that this is a big thing that helps them operate the way that they do. And it also makes sense that they don't have to pull a trailer to who knows where every night. So these vendors that we have are bringing vibrancy to our community, and I think that they're a great benefit to our community at large. So I will be moving recommendation 2 that the District of Sechelt Parks, Lands and Roads Temporary Rental Amendment Bylaw 480-3 2018 be read a first, second, and third time.
And is there a seconder? Seconded? All in favor? Thank you. So we'll move to page 42, item 8.2B. This is District of Sechelt Bylaw number 480-3 2019, a bylaw to amend Parks, Lands and Roads Temporary Rental Bylaw number 480 2018. And if you'll note at the bottom of the amendments, the last sentence says, this provision shall be reviewed by council 1 year after its adoption. So it's in place for 1 year and will come back for review at that time. So I look for a first reading. Moved, seconded. All in favor of first reading? Thank you. And I'll look for second reading. Moved, seconded. All in favor of second? Thank you. And third reading. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you very much. So item 8.3A, Fees and Charges Bylaw number 575, 2019. A motion to receive the report from the Manager of Financial Services. Moved, seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is simply to recommend the council adopt the new fees and charges bylaw. It was given for a second and third reading on May 15th, and it would now be appropriate to adopt the bylaw as written.
Thank you. First, before we go to adoption, any comments? Thank you. So, we've heard this part already. Perfect. So the recommendation that we proceed with adoption, would someone like to make that recommendation? Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And we'll move to the bylaw, which is on page 46. District of Sechelt Fees and Charges Bylaw number 575, 2019, a bylaw to establish rates, fees, and charges for District of Sechelt municipal services. And I'll look for someone to move adoption. Moved? Seconded? All in favor of adoption? Thank you very much. We have one more. Let me get to that page. Item 8.4A, Zoning Bylaw Amendment number 25-298, 2019, R3 Zone, Minimum Lot Area for New Subdivisions. First, a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor of receipt? Thank you. And did you want to speak to it? Any questions by council? Let's do it that way. This has come before us before. This was just a very small amendment to clarify what staff were doing inside the zone to determine, to indicate which lot size was associated with sewer and which was associated not sewer with the size. So we have a motion to, that the amendment bylaw be adopted. Would someone like to make that motion? Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Move to page 61, item 8.4B, bylaw number 25-298, 2019, R3 Zone Minimum Lot Area for Subdivision, being a bylaw to amend District of Sechelt zoning bylaw number 25, 1987. And I'd like to look for someone to move adoption. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you very much. No new business. Move to item number 10. This is 10.1, manufacturing lounge endorsement application for Batch 44 Brewery, 5559 Wharf Avenue in Sechelt. I'd look for a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor of receipt? Thank you very much. And Ms. Corbett.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is an application for a manufacturer's lounge endorsement for 5559 Wharf. This is the Batch 44 brewery. You can see on the map where it is located. So this is in the old Bayside restaurant. As with, you've seen other lounge endorsements come forward. On this particular one, this has a 78-person capacity. That includes the whole restaurant. It's located within the existing restaurant. They're recommending or requesting hours of 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. The project itself has included a number of building and facade upgrades. You can see them doing the deck and the entranceway. We brought forward a zoning amendment in October of last year to allow for microbrewery and microdistillery in the C2 zones in anticipation partially of this application. So it's consistent with the zoning. The lounge itself will also offer a full restaurant menu. Under the licensing application, so they come from the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch, they require that council consider their criteria, which is spoken to in the report. They look at the location of the facility, they look at its proximity to other facilities, the person capacity and the hours, number of establishments in the area, and then impacts related to noise and any other impacts on the community. This particular application, staff are supporting in that it's where we would want to see these kind of uses. It's in the downtown core. I think the improvements they've been doing to the building are much needed and very welcome in that particular area. So it has been operating as a restaurant since, I believe, 1987, so I don't foresee any additional community impact associated with this. That shows where it is related to, shows the downtown designation, the notification period. We did do a 100-meter notification. It picks up quite a bit of the area in the downtown. Shown on that map, and that's included in your report, so you can actually follow the legend in there in terms of where the schools and the facilities are. This one shows the location relative to the alternative school, and there's a preschool in the First Nations property just on the other side. So the recommendations is that Council pass a resolution recommending support for the application. And the third recommendation on the report is that Council confirm to the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch that they've considered their criteria as part of the endorsement. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of the director? Councillor McLean?
I think I jumped the gun in. It's more of a comment. This is not close to very many residential facilities, but there is the Arrowhead Center, which is right behind this proposal. Actually, this is a question. Sorry, I'm rambling. They seem to be building some kind of retaining wall currently. Are we aware of the designs, and will that shield a bit of the noise from the patio towards the backside? Are you aware of that, or is staff aware of that?
The applicants at this time aren't proposing to extend the lounge endorsement onto the patio, so it should actually function very much like currently does. The Old Boot is adjacent to. In terms of impact on the Arrowhead, I wouldn't see it as being any different from what currently exists there. They have to do as a matter of building code to put some barrier around the patio for safety purposes. I'm not sure it would have any impact on noise per se. They're usually about 3 feet 3 inches approximately, so I wouldn't think it would actually function as a noise barrier, but certainly would contain it. It's more for safety of the patrons.
Councillor McLean?
Thanks for that. And another related question. Has staff looked at the amount of parking available on this site and how that may be impacted by a Wharf Avenue redevelopment?
Through the chair, we did as part of the application, it will impact some of the units that are in the front, but a number of those don't actually even count toward the legal parking requirement because they're actually just almost part of the roadway. So it shouldn't impact the off-site calculation. So we did look at that.
Any other questions? We have 2 recommendations in front of us. Would someone like to move those recommendations? Councillor Scott.
I'll move recommendation 2 and 3.
So recommendation 2 is that council pass a resolution recommending support for the application to the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch for a manufacturer lounge endorsement for the Batch 44 Brewery. And 3, that council confirmed to the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch that they have considered their criteria as part of the lounge endorsement application. And that's listed as A through F. So is there a seconder for that motion? Seconded? Any other comments before we vote? All those in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you. Item 10.2, committee terms of reference. First, a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you very much. And Ms. Frank.
Thank you, Your Worship. In 2018, Council established the committees that are listed there in recommendation number 2 of my report. And in keeping with our usual practice, terms of reference have been drafted for each and attached to my report for Council's consideration.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor McLean.
In the original December 5th motion, there were 2 more committees proposed, a Economic Development Committee and a Downtown Revitalization Committee. Do we have any update on where those committees are at?
Yes. The Downtown Revitalization Committee is currently on hold. We will be having conversations with the Seashell Chamber and the Downtown Business Association prior to determining whether or not that should move forward. We don't want to overlap the mandates of those 2 committees or those 2 organizations already. And as well with the Economic Development Committee, there are other organizations as well, like the Sunshine Coast Economic Development Organization, that we need to be in conversation with to, and again, ensure that what we're doing here is not duplicating what others are doing. So those conversations are ongoing. When those are sorted out, then we'll determine whether or not those other 2 will move forward and what they'll look like. So there's a recommendation that the terms of reference as presented be adopted for the Housing Advisory Committee, Water Resources Select Committee, Airport Development Select Committee, and Harbor Expansion and Development Select Committee. The difference between the Housing Committee and the other 3 committees, the Select Committees typically have terms of reference where they are in operation for 1 year and then are reevaluated at that time to determine whether or not they're going to continue. The Housing Committee is ongoing until we determine that that would wrap. Any comments or questions? Would someone like to move recommendation number 2?
Sure, I'll move recommendation number 2.
Is there a seconder? Seconded? All those in favor? Thank you. So I have a question for the corporate officer. So we've adopted these terms of reference. What will the next step be?
The next step will be to start advertising for people that would like to serve on those committees. So, you know, we would advertise in the usual way through the local newspapers, our web pages, social media, and any other way that would work. And with the with the idea that we'd set a deadline, sort of within a reasonable length of time for people to apply, and then eventually bring forward names for council to consider appointing.
Perfect. Councillor McLean.
I have a couple people interested in some of these committees already. Do we have any idea of when applications could be open?
No, first step was let's get the committee struck, but we will be moving forward on that right away, when we will keep council posted.
Yeah, there have been a number of people in the community already excited about this and wanting to be part of it, so we look forward to having them bring their names forward. I know Councillor Scott is excited too. Councillor McLean?
I'm also excited. But like, I think all four committees are addressing some challenges that this community faces. And to be able to bring in citizens to addressing some of these challenges, I think it's going to be really helpful, especially if we can get some people who are knowledgeable in these areas. I think we can get some really innovative ideas going and some strong energy behind them. And it'll help move us forward on 4 really tough portfolios.
I had the privilege to have breakfast this morning with a couple of the councillors and the chief from the Shuswap Nation, and they expressed interest in sitting on the Housing Committee and the Harbour Committee. So I look forward to working with them on there. All right, so we'll move on to item 10.3. This is the Sunshine Coast Community Forest Q1 financial results for 2019. And this is a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor of receipt? Any comments or questions about this? All right, so let's move on to item 10.4. This is Ebbtide Non-Potable Water Station. This is brought forward by Councillors Toth and Rowe. So would one of you like to speak to it?
I think that the request for decision basically speaks for itself. The station has historically been opened by council resolution for public access, so we felt that it would be appropriate to have a resolution to open it early. Originally, we'd been talking about stage 3, and then it was sort of discussed about why not stage 2. So here we are.
Councillor McLean.
Question for staff. Are we aware of any health hazards of opening this station, and what can we do to mitigate some of these issues?
There are no health issues. We test the water yearly. We're in the process of testing it now. It is non-potable, again, for plants and stuff like that. The system is ready to be operated. We have been had it operated for about 2 weeks now, and it's ready to go. So,
Thank you. So there are 2 recommendations that have been brought forward. Oh, sorry, question, Councillor Scott.
Yeah, you might need to give it back to him. I'm just curious what kind of volume is sitting there right now.
that's hard to determine, but since we had it open last year, we've never dried out the source. Again, it just basically collects from groundwater around it. So depending on how the people utilize it, it replenishes itself.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Lamb.
So right now, I guess we're just using, there's just one tap available at this present time.
We have one tap for parks, and that's solely for them. And also, I believe we set up 2 taps now for the public.
Okay, so because in the past, it did have 2 taps set up. Yeah, okay. Okay, what size of we're just using a garden hose off it right now? Is that what we're using?
I'm not too sure if it's just a garden hose, but again, the side for the public works or parks, it's a larger, what's called utility. However, I believe the other one is just a garden hoses.
Okay. Yeah, and then is there a possibility of putting meters on these, metering the water, just so we can get some sort of an idea of how much water we are using or how much it's capable of generating?
We could investigate that possibility and maybe pick up a couple water meters from the SCRD.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, and then on the, is there some sort of a shut off on the hose? So like if, I don't know how it actually works, is it shut off, you know, pardon me? Automatic. It's automatic? Well, no, this is how we need.
Does it have a latch?
Well, when you, like, you turn it on, so you run over, turn it off on it, the thing, then you run into you put the hose in your truck, and then when you go to turn it off.
There is a pump system,
yeah.
And again, it's activated by a valve, so once you're done, you just turn off the valve.
Okay. Okay, so like, could we put something on the end of the hose so that, you know, so you can stand there and fill your truck or whatever you want to do with it, your container, and then shut it off there?
There is.
There is?
Yes.
Okay, okay, perfect. Okay, yep. And then what about, is there a traffic pattern or anything like that? So I think in the past, there's been maybe a problem with congestion there, so is there?
That's correct. We set up barricades and little kind of delineators so people have a good understanding of drive in, drive around, and stuff. So it's a circular motion.
I think you've done a good job. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? So in the report, there are 2 recommendations. One, that staff be directed to activate the publicly accessible non-potable water station once the SCRD declares stage 2 water conservation, which is June 7th, we've been told. And number 2, that signage be posted at the water station indicating the source of the water, the non-potable nature of the water, and recommended uses for the water to avoid direct human contact. Would someone like to make those recommendations?
I'll move those 2 recommendations.
Is there a seconder? Seconded. Question? All in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you, staff, for doing that. And thank you to the councillors for bringing that forward. So now we're at council reports. So how about if we start on this end and move down our table? Councillor McLean.
I wasn't expecting to go first, so.
Would we like to start with Councillor Todd?
No, I'm ready.
You ready? Okay.
I'm just going to pick the most important ones and hope people have the other ones. So I think the Ferry Advisory Committee, new committee, a bunch of new members aside from 2 previous members. So it's a lot of new energy on that committee. And I'd say the big thing we're looking to do is go beyond just advising BC Ferries. What else can a group of citizens who are concerned about our ferries do to better the ferry experience than just talking with BC Ferries? So I'm excited for further discussions with that group. It's a great, diverse group of people from across the Lower Sunshine Coast. And we had our first meeting with some productive dialogue, particularly around medical assured loading on the ferries. No solutions yet, but we might make some progress. Going to talk about the Active Transportation Month closing. I think the Active Transportation Month was a huge success. Previously, it was just Bike to Work Week, but Transportation Choices opened it up to a lot of other modes of active transportation, and it brought a lot more people into this group. I'm particularly proud of the District of Sechelt for their involvement, both planning a couple events, taking active transportation and encouraging it within the staff, and making the boulevard pilot happen. We were able to get a dedicated, safe walking area for 2 weeks, and I love the idea of doing a pilot. It helps us understand the issues that we have in our community for a very low investment, rather than just doing it and hope we do it right. So I'm very happy with that, and I look forward to the discussion whenever it comes back to council. I think the last one I'm going to do is SPCA Whiskers and Wine. The SPCA asked me to be an MC for their fundraising gala. It was an interesting experience. I've never been an MC before, but I think everyone had a lot of fun and it didn't go too terribly. And at the end of the day, the SPCA raised over $8,000. So it was an outstanding event, and I hope to be back next year.
Thank you. Councillor Toth.
Other than some of the things that others, I'm sure, will talk about, I attended a library board meeting where we talked about the community surveys that the library is doing right now and how the library will be doing their public engagement up to and including Canada Day to help inform their new strategic plan. I attended part of a Gibson's Council meeting last night where they had their discussion about the fireworks not happening this year and how they're looking for new environmentally friendly ideas from the community on how to best utilize the $16,000 that they have budgeted for fireworks. And one more thing on a personal note, I came back from vacation to find myself blocked on one of the local social media groups. Not really sure why, but if anyone's looking to have coffee or talk to me about anything, I'm a pretty easy person to find around town. So that's all I really have to say.
Thank you. Councillor Rowe.
I'm going to take my hall pass this week.
All right. Councillor Scott.
Well, as most probably know, I'm fairly involved with the Air Cadets, and the Air Cadet Squadron, the 858 Skookumchuck, had their 20th anniversary annual ceremonial review this past weekend, which Councillor Rowe attended, so but she left it to me. I've been asked to MC that event for probably, well, the last 3 years now, and it's the Air Cadets are near and dear to my heart. One of the things that was interesting is there's one of the programs with the Air Cadets is called Effective Speaking, which is essentially a Toastmasters, and the CO of the squadron is very active in ensuring that all the cadets participate in the Effective Speaking program, and there's competitions all over the province. And we had one of our cadets present at the event, and it was really quite interesting. She's her family travels back and forth between. They live in Pender Harbor and Denmark, and her parents are teachers. And as she got older, she didn't want to travel back and forth. She wanted to stay in Canada and finish her schooling here. And just the effect of that close-knit family and her moving away has brought her to her topic. And it was one she calls skin hunger, which is lack of human contact. And it was really a moving discussion, and talks about how society is changing and moving away from that, where just walking up and giving somebody a hug, or we just don't do that anymore. We move into other platforms like social media to get that sort of connection to other people for those that are maybe shy and stuff like that. So it was very interesting to listen to how it affects her being away from her family and what she does to mitigate that lack of connection to people. And it made me think about me as a pilot traveling all over, where I'm disconnected from my family, and where my first night away, I kind of starfish on the bed and enjoy the fact that I get it all to myself. But by the time morning comes, it's like, actually, I miss the family. So not spend the rest of the time just wishing I was home. So I don't know if it moved you guys as much as yeah. Anyways, that's the story.
Councillor Lamb.
There you go. Where do we start? Wow, okay. Well, yeah, where do I start? I guess I had attended the Sunshine Coast Regional District put on a water information meeting last night. Well, it was Monday, Tuesday, and then tonight it's going off in Gibson's, just trying to inform the public of where we are with the water situation, and trying to give as much information as we can to the public, and then also getting public feedback so that, you know, the regional district and the board can work together and work together. The big part of it is working together as a whole community here, from Pender Harbor to Port Mellon, to hopefully get the best water, you know, best amounts of water, I guess, you know, so that we have a good water in a good amount of water in the future. Personally, I took a week off and went to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, and for some reason, most of our travels that we go on, we always end up, you know, there always seems to be something interesting that shows up. Anyways, it was the 101st anniversary of Puerto Vallarta when we were down there, and so they had one of the big name bands from Mexico come and put on a performance in the what they call the Malecon, which is it's just a big people place, and I don't know, 10,000, 15,000 people, and everybody having a great time dancing, and you know, we were in there with them, and they didn't, you know, it was just everybody was welcome, and it was fun to participate with. So then I'll go on to my SCRD role. So the last session we had was corporate and administrative services. So we gave the SCRD the opportunity to negotiate a 5-year agreement with the Sechelt Library. Approved draft resolutions for UBCM for the 2019 convention, which were the two resolutions were climate change and tree cutting, and it was tree cutting with regards to the forest industry. Advocating for additional sailings and maybe a foot passenger service with BC Ferries. The SCRD is we're applying for grants for a housing and needs assessment, and the town of Gibsons will be taking the leadership role on that. Looking at a policy for procurement update, just an update to the policy for procurement, and it has not been updated since 2011. So the Gibsons Area Community Center will be providing ice for the month. They will start with the month of August this year. So I think the user groups are looking forward to that. They've been pretty adamant at trying to get more ice time. And then also we recommended the contract for wood waste be awarded to Salish Soils. And so instead, the wood waste will be going to Salish Soils instead of going to our landfill. And I think that's it for me. Good, thank you.
Thank you. I was going to make one comment about the Salish Soils and the wood waste. The wood waste was being taken off coast, and we found that they were, instead of doing something with it, they were actually putting it in the landfill. So Salish Soils is going to be chipping it, and some of the stuff that they chip will actually go back to the landfill as cover. So that's been incorporated in that as well. So, Councillor Kuster.
Thank you. First, I want to mention a few of us attended the intergovernmental meeting where all of our local governments went over their strategic plans and collaborated and brainstormed about priorities for community as a whole. So that was really good to sit with everyone and meet everyone and get to know everyone as well. I do want to mention from that meeting, there was some youth representatives from the school board and from Gibson's. They have some youth reps on their council. And I just want to say I was so impressed how articulate those kids were, and the level of commitment and passion and the advocates they are for our environment, for our climate and our environmental issues. I was really impressed by that. So that was awesome. This leads me into, I was at the Youth Advisory or Action Committee. I attended last week. I want to mention it's amazing to sit around a whole bunch of people that are advocates for our youth, are there to support our most vulnerable youth and support them. Our CMP were there, community schools, community services, Lori who was here earlier for supporting our LGBTQ community, and just a lot of vulnerable youth out there, and we have a great support system out there to help them. And just going back to Lori, considering it's Pride Month, she is just an amazing support, and she also mentioned Sunday Pride in Park It with Pride, and also my big gay prom. She wanted to make sure that got mentioned. Great for all the youth out there. And what else was there? I think, oh yeah, and then Brenda, Matt, Darnold, and I were with the Lieutenant Governor on Saturday, and that was really fun to go meet her. And lastly, I just want us to go back to youth, considering it's Child and Youth in Care Week. And talking about foster care, one thing I learned from the advisory committee is that we do not have enough foster care homes for the children in our community, and they end up actually leaving the coast. So just wanted to mention that as well. And that's it for me.
Thank you. So I'll mention a few things that haven't been mentioned. The cedar ceremony. So the Shuswap Nation and the Reconciliation Group are going to be having a totem pole carved as a reconciliation action that the community can take part in. It's going to be launched on the 21st. You can actually see the tree. It's beside Big Mac's, right, in the parking lot. After June 21st, it's open to the community, and they're inviting people to come forward and help carve this. So it'll actually be a community totem pole. Once it's carved, it will actually become part of that building that's going to be put up on that site. So it will be a memory and a piece that the community has taken part in. What's so important about that site is that that's actually where the classrooms of the school were, the residential school. So it's actually repurposing a site that has a lot of meaning and a lot of trauma for the community. I attended the BC Schizophrenia Society AGM. Victoria Maxwell is an artist, an actor, and she herself was diagnosed with a mental illness. She grew up in a family of mental illness, and she's taken her experience and she does a one-woman show on mental illness, and she takes all the parts and portrays that. It's phenomenal. If you ever have an opportunity to see her, I mean, it's something I wasn't aware of. It's not something in my family, but she brings it alive. So you actually can really experience the situation and what the impact is on somebody growing up in an environment like that. So if you can get to see her, please do. Something that's really shown up in the last month, I'd say, is climate change. And I think for me, the newspaper helped publish, when I went to the school board office, to their AGM, or their board meeting, and I questioned the students who were doing the protesting in Davis Bay. And it got put in the paper. Well, since then, I've been getting all kinds of letters from students saying, you know, what are you doing and how are you doing? What is the municipality doing? So I've been responding to them. Some of those answers and letters, et cetera, are in the correspondence here. But through that, I got invited to an event called the Green New Deal Student Town Hall, where we were looking at what are some of the things that we want our governments to take on. We were in small groups. We brainstormed about what were good things we wanted and what were things we didn't want, and those were put forward. Also out of that is this coming Saturday, there's a youth climate action panel going to be at Elphinstone. I believe it starts at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's open to the public. Our MLA and our MP will be there. So will Warren Paul, the chief from the band. I'll be there, and Lori Pratt from the regional district will be there. Bill Beamish from Town of Gibsons, and we're at the panel. We have to give a 2-minute talk on what our municipalities are doing, and then we're going to be questioned by the young people. So that'll be an interesting day. So lots of focus on that in the last while. I took part in the envisioning with Councillor McLean, the Envisioning 2030 for CapU. So Capilano University is looking at what is it that we here on the community, in the community, want to see Capilano University be in 2030. So taking, not looking at we want this course or that course, but what do we want it, what role do we want to see it fulfill in our community? So at the end of our session here, they've done this through all of their campuses. They said they got the most feedback and from our campus here. So they were pretty blown away by some of the stuff we came forward with. Popsicle stick bridge building competition. It's always a blast, particularly the little kids who go up there. They can't even see up to where their bridge is on there, and they're going to be breaking it. So it's a lot of fun to watch them. Some families too, they all got into there were 77 entries this year. It was almost double what they had the year before. What they did was they approached Elphinstone Secondary School, and some of the teachers got involved and encouraged their students to take part. Next year they want to get chat involved as well. So what happened was they had so many come forward that their registration system at the beginning of the event couldn't quite handle the numbers, so they realized they have to do some rejigging for that for next year. In the last couple of days, I've been attending meetings around homeless. So Sunshine Coast Homelessness Advisory Committee meeting. This is a group pulled together from various organizations on the Sunshine Coast that deal with the people who are homeless here. We share what's happening in our area. One of the things that's come out recently is that there are a lot more homeless on the Sunshine Coast, and it's become very prevalent and very visible in the last few months. Some of that we found comes from the fact that we have people on the Sunshine Coast who give 6-month leases, and those leases typically come due beginning of May. And then in May, those people are put out on the street. So one of the members of this committee told us that they had a list of 15 that were evicted at the beginning of May, and they had another 5 that were evicted at the beginning of June. So those were some of them, but we also have some who are coming here from off-coast. So we are looking at a multi-organizational, multi-jurisdictional group coming together to see how we can deal with what the situation here is on the Sunshine Coast. So the second meeting I had around that was with regards to the CAT team. It's a community action team. This is funding that the provincial government has given out across the province to organizations that are willing to look at how do we deal with drug users, people who use drugs regularly. And there are a number of initiatives that will be coming forward from that. That committee has pretty much run its course. It was a 1-year funding. We are looking at applying for funding for another year. So the terms of reference of that will be put forward over the next little while and brought forward for review. Short turnaround, they have to apply sometime this month yet. Just before the council meeting tonight, I did the first pitch at the fastball game that's starting. They're just starting their league. They wanted to thank the community and the District of Sechelt for all the support with putting up the new backstop and the netting and everything else. It looks really nice. Even the people there watching were saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I did get the ball to the back catcher, so it was good. I'll mention one workshop that's coming up. It is June 10th, so that's Monday of next week. It's the Urban Interface Workshop. It'll be at Chattahoochee High School, starting at 7 p.m. The community forest actually is bringing in 4 speakers. These are speakers that they've encountered in other communities. They're bringing them in the afternoon, morning and afternoon, to talk with the firefighters, to give them some more understanding of some of the issues around housing and trees and forest fires. And in the evening, it's going to be for residents. So please make sure everybody knows about it. Come out, and it's free to attend. We've already had quite a few fires. I think there have been about at least a dozen in the last month already. So, and 1 death already. So please come out and see what you can do to spread this information throughout your community. And I think that's it. So we're back to item number 12. This is council correspondence. Move council correspondence. Seconded. All in favor of receipt? Thank you very much. Is there anything on there that you wanted to address? We'll start with Councillor Toth first, and then Councillor McLean.
I actually have a question about items 1 and 2. I know there's a lot of appetite in the community for plastics ban, and I know that we've been following the going-ons of Victoria. Do we know when that appeal is being heard?
No, at this point, it's in the queue to be heard, but they haven't set a date yet, as far as I know.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McLean?
Number 7, regarding the feedback on management of private forests. I'd like to refer this one to staff to create a response, in particular with the situation in Sandy Hook and some of the concerns it's had in the neighborhood and some of the concerns it's had in our municipal authority and ability to manage municipal areas.
Would you like to make that a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to move that it's referred to staff to create a response.
I'll second that. All those in favor? I was actually, because of some of the situation that we've dealt with up in Sandy Hook, and because of the meeting that we had with the private managed forest people at AVICC in Powell River, I was actually contacted to give direct input. So, because they've been phoning, they hired a consulting company to do communications and consultation throughout the province. So I've actually given direct input specifically to them on our situation. They were aware of it, but have added to that. But this would be something else that could go forward. As you'll notice on here too, it's been forwarded to the Sandy Hook Community Association to also give their input from their perspective, which I think will help inform this as well. Any others? All right. Any emergency items? Look for a motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And we look